In this video, I'm going to help you pick up your programming career path. For beginners who have interest in learning programming or who are very junior, it's very difficult to navigate through the programming world because nowadays you have easy access to a lot of information, and if you don't have a good mentor or a mentor at all, it's very hard to decide the steps you need to take to move forward. You'll find it very hard to differentiate between what is difficult and what is easy. So you will usually end up with learning bits and pieces of all the things. Maybe you will learn things from one programming languages and other programming languages. It could be different versions. For example, if you know the language called javascript, uh, there are a lot of versions of javascript, so a lot of things that require many setups and transpilers and a lot of things. And if you try those and it might not work, try which when you try it makes you very frustrated, and which is never good because if you are learning something and you are not happy, you are frustrated, it's very hard to continue. Another common problem that I faced when I was starting was choosing the path I want to go, especially the programming languages, because there are a lot of programming languages out there. Each one serves a different purpose, and when you are starting, you don't know what each programming language does, or even if you read, it's very hard to choose where or what to do, right? So what happened with me was I ended up trying different programming languages and never actually learned one in a proper way. So it took me quite some time to be able to build projects myself. Now that after jumping through lots of programming languages and doing a lot of projects and working in different companies, this is what I've learned on how to start learning absolutely anything. So right now we are trying to apply this technique with programming languages, but you can do the same thing for any other thing that you want. So the first thing you need to do when you start learning anything is to break it down into categories. So breaking it down into categories helps you to see the very high level overview of what you are trying to learn or what it is about. So in case of programming languages or maybe the programming world, there are mainly two categories that you want to follow. It's either mobile or web. There are definitely other categories like maybe your desktop applications, smart appliances, and all those things that you can also program. But the main thing or main categories that you can consider would be mobile and web. So let's make a decision here on what you want to go with. So ask yourself these questions. Would you love to create mobile apps or games? Or would you be very happy developing websites and web applications? I think you are very clear on what the mobile apps are and what web applications are, and now you need to decide like which one would make you more happy when you are building that thing. So it's totally up to you, and if you don't have any preference, my personal advice would be to go with web development because it's very easy to start, it's flexible, and you can see the progress quickly, which is very important in the learning phase. However, if you want to go with mobile and you have preference for that, it's totally fine, and it's also not that complex uh, if you follow the process. So one of the things that's very important when learning anything is to know the roadmap, because if you are going to the internet, YouTube, and trying to learn programming, you don't know what the steps are, what things you need to know before approaching certain topics, then you will end up trying different things, trying to learn the complex thing without having the basic understanding of it, which makes it very difficult to move forward and you are stuck in same place for a long time. So let's I'm going to take an example of web development and also give a bit of example for mobile development also. So in this one, This is the web developer roadmap for 2020. So if you go to the internet and you look for roadmap, you can find a lot of GitHub repositories or articles and a lot of things that will give you the roadmaps of different languages, different roles, and a lot of things. So right now I'm going through web developer roadmap and trying to um, make you understand how you can use this technique to learn the programming faster. So the first thing inside the web developer is uh, you have to choose a path. Each section or uh, after certain things you already always have to make some decisions, because there are a lot of tools, there are a lot of languages, and there are a lot of ways to do things. So you have to make decisions and stick to one, and not try everything at once. So in web development 2020 choose your path, let's go with the front end. So here if you can see, there is this section which says required for any path. That there is a git, which is a version control system. So it allows you to manage the versions of your code, source code, what you have changed, uh, if you want to revert back to something else, if you want to collaborate with the team. It's very helpful. Obviously it's very important to learn git at some point, but you can get by without even learning git for first couple of months, or until you have some basic understanding, or until you can build something. And there's also the terminal usage, data structure algorithms, GitHub licenses. All of these things, these are very important, but you don't have to do that before you know anything. Like if you don't have basic understanding of any programming languages, or you don't know how to make products, it doesn't make sense to go and try to understand about git or terminal, or go deeply inside data structure and algorithms. So what you can do is you can start with something simple. You learn how to make some product, you learn how to make a very basic app. Then you slowly, when you wrap up with all those things, you try to make your programming better, your product better. Then you will see the need for all of these things, and then you can go back and learn all of these things. So inside front end, what the first thing that we need to learn is internet. You need to know how does the internet work, what is http, and all of these things, the basic things of internet. It's always helpful to know what it is and understand, instead of directly jumping and then not understanding what http means, what dns means, because these things come up very frequently. And if you don't know this, and you are always going to get confused. So once you have that basic thing, go to the next step, that is HTML. And here you can see, I'm not going to go through each one of these, but you can see that what you have to do, like learn the basics, or learn about accessibility, SEO basics, and go through each topics and try to learn those, try to build something out of those, and then move to the next section. So if we are HTML, and if we have done some of the basics of the HTML, forms, validations, and a lot of these things, layouts, then you will see there is a need for something better that will make your work easier or development easier. So then you will see a lot of mention of CSS, and you can go to CSS and learn CSS on need basis. For example, you are trying to build something, and then you see, okay, you need some CSS or styling. Then you can go to the CSS and then learn some basics and learn what you require. That way what happens is, if you are building something, you see the problem and you learn something, you will understand exactly where it fits and how it is being used in the applications, instead of learning those things independently. After that, you can see is javascript is really popular these days, and it's very helpful if you learn the basics of it and know what's going on, right? So you can go with what are the basic things and what you can build with it. After that you can follow the same path. Now see, we have version control systems. So this one, at this point you need to uh, understand how the git works, because now it's going to be more helpful. And because you are going to make a lot of mistakes, you are going to work with team, and it's always helpful to have a version control system. After that it's up to you to decide how you want to approach this, because this is the basics of it. And then after that each topic has subtopics. For example, css architectures has BIM or css or sms css. Css preprocessors are there, SAS, lace, and all those things. You don't need to learn all of those. You can look at the legend here. It says this is the personal recommendation, this is an alternative options, pick this or purple. So this means that you have the choice what you want to use. You don't have to learn all of those, but you can choose one of those, and you can continue working with those until you are able to develop product on that one thing. And you see there is a need or there is a limitation on that particular technology or particular library, then you can start learning another thing. For example, if you see the package manager here, it has npm and yarn. Both of them are the package managers. A lot of people prefer using npm, a lot of people prefer using yarn. So it's basically up to you. You can pick any one of those or learn those, and once you see okay there are some limitations based on what you work on, you can easily switch to next one or continue using both based on your needs. So after that you need to see how you want to uh, progress further, because now it gets a bit complicated. uh, One thing I want to focus is picking of framework, right? Build tools and all those things, you can follow the same pattern. Picking up one, learning that thing, and switching to another thing, or learning the another library or tools at some other point when you already have the basic understanding and working knowledge of that one. Picking a framework is very important. What I personally do is, if I am going to pick a new framework or new programming language, what I usually see is what is trending currently. I'll go up to the internet and I will see what are the best framework for front end in 2020. So there will be a lot of comparison sites because people love to compare. There will be a comparison between React, Angular, Vue. It will explain you like why each one is very different. You don't have to try it at first, but uh, you can see okay, for example, React is very popular for this reasons. So then you can choose to go with React.js. One of the things that should also influence what you go with is the market demand. When you are picking up a framework or a language, it's very helpful if you go to job boards and see a lot of job postings and see what people are looking for. For example, if there are 100 React.js jobs and 40 Angular jobs and 10 Vue.js jobs, it's best to choose React.js. But if you are living in a place where AngularJS is famous, and a lot of people are looking for AngularJS developers, then you have to go with AngularJS because you are starting. And what's the point of programming? Uh, Learning a programming language if you can't find a job, or if there is a no demand in the market you are. After that you can, each language has its own libraries, own way of doing things, its own standard. You can go deeply into each framework or each language. For example, for React.js, I have this one, React Developer Roadmap. So this one says what are the things that you must know, what are the things good, it's very good to know, and what are the further possibilities. So you can pick one of the languages, try to look for its roadmap and then try to follow that specifically. So if you choose React, you can see HTML, CSS, JS basics are must to know, and then you need the general development skills. And then if you come to styling, you have CSS preprocessor, which is you must know. But now within CSS preprocessors, there are options that you can go with Sass CSS, Post CSS, or you have options of lace or stylus. Similarly, within styling, CSS frameworks is good to know. You can get by without knowing them, but it's very good to know. There is Bootstrap, Material UI, Bulma, Semantic UI, and a lot of things. So you can look up the roadmap for these things. For example, if you want to go with AngularJS also, you can try to look up for the roadmap for AngularJS and see what are the important informations or libraries that you need to know. For example, if you remember the web developer roadmap I was showing before, it was very generic of a generic web developer. But if you it doesn't include the libraries or some of the common standards within the frameworks. So for example, in React, you can see there is thing called state management, and there are libraries that do that. So Redux is one of the very popular libraries for state management. You will not find this in a web developer roadmap because it's very generic. But if you go to the React roadmap specifically, you can see okay, Redux is one of the popular libraries. Within Redux, you can see okay, there's also one thing called Redux Form. There's something called Formic, and there's something called Formc, and a lot of things. So it's very helpful. If you pick up a framework, you have to go deeply inside the framework to understand what libraries are common and what libraries are standard practice. Because if you don't go through this, or if you don't understand what the standard libraries are, maybe you come to this point and where you need to do the state management and you don't know how to do it, and you have a lot of issues. For example, if you do the state management with component state or context, you are going to run into a lot of problems because things get very complicated, and if you don't know how to solve them, you will be stuck, and you might be trying a lot of different libraries which will be limited, and you will be frustrated. So it's very nice to see what other people are using and what is the common industry standard. So after the framework, you can go with each framework also includes the basic styling and all of these things also. uh, Other things are like type checkers, progressive web apps. These are a little bit complex topics. So uh, in any roadmap, the further down you go, the things start to get more complicated, and those things are not absolutely necessary for you to work on it right now, because you can do some basics, you can do some product development, and then as you move forward, you can slowly pick up these things and understand more. So this is just for the web developer, and this is specifically for front end. There is also a thing called backend, there is also DevOps. Each one of those have their own roadmap, and if you don't know what front end, backend, or DevOps means, it's very easy. You just go to Google and try to search what the front end development means, what the back end development means, or what DevOps development means. You can see what the front end development does and each one of these, and try to understand more of what it is, so it's easier for you to make decisions. Now let me give you a quick overview of mobile developer also. So being a mobile developer, you have two obvious choices that you might already know. That's either you want to go with Android app development or iOS app development. One thing you might not be aware of is hybrid app development, or we also call it cross platform app development. So this one includes only the roadmap for iOS, but you can also look for Android roadmap and cross-platform roadmap. So for iOS, you need to, what are the basic things, like you need to learn the basics. That is, you need to know the Xcode ID, you need to learn Swift or Objective C, and then you need to know the common topics like human interface guidelines, iOS technologies, and all of these things. And you can follow the exact same path. You can choose the topic, you have a lot of branches going on, you can pick one of the libraries. Which ones are optional, you can pick one of the libraries and uh, learn that one and move to the next branch. And once you are able to develop some applications or develop some products, you will have the basic understanding of how to, what are the problems that you are facing. Or for example, if you are using certain library and you have some limitations, you will know that there are certain limitations, and you will try to look for other libraries, and you can easily jump, because there won't be a very overhead of information at that point. I would also like to mention about the hybrid applications, because it's trending right now, and a lot of people are trying to move to cross-platform app development, because developing in Android and iOS requires two different code bases, two different teams, and it's usually very costly. Earlier, it was the hybrid applications were not that fancy or not that smooth, and it didn't give the same experience as doing the native applications in Android or iOS. But recently, with lot of new technologies like React Native, Flutter, things are getting very smooth, easy. So a lot of developers are moving into hybrid app development, because it's now easier, because you have a single code base that works on Android, iOS, and also now they are trying to promote more on cross-platform for mobile and web also. So definitely take a look at that, and if that thing interests you, it's always good to know your options, and then make a decisions instead of just going through one and choosing that one and not liking it later on. So this is the basics of how you can approach any programming language. So to summarize, it should be, you need to make the decisions of where you want to go. It can be mobile or web, and if you go through mobile, you have Android, iOS, or hybrid. If you go through web, you have front end, back end, DevOps, and within each ones have lot of branches. And then at every point, you need to compare two or three things, and make a decisions based on that one. I think this will help you, hopefully help you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put that down in the comment. I will try to reply as much as possible. And have happy learning.